Mr. Bauer.
I understand that, Senator.
So basically what you're saying, Mr. Bauer, is that the ends justify the means.
By doing what I deem necessary to protect innocent lives. When I am activated, when I am brought into a situation, there is a reason. And that reason is to complete the objectives of my mission at all costs.
Are you a Machiavellian? A very tough final question coming from Professor Clarita Carlos. And I think this is one of the best questions I've heard in the history of Philippines presidential debates and interviews. At the same time, this is also where I could say Bongbong Marcos is so smart. If you go to the internet, ang karamihang makikita mong definition ng pagiging Machiavellian is something that marked by being cunning, duplicity, or bad faith, sabi ni Merriam-Webster Dictionary. But that's not entirely true, because the true definition of being a Machiavellian is about the principles of conduct laid down by Machiavelli sa isang libro na kanyang sinulat na ang title ay The Prince. Simplihan natin para mas maintindihan. Si Niccolo Machiavelli ay isang Italian diplomat, isang philosopher, isang author during the 15th century. Ang kanyang sinulat na libro na ang title ay The Prince is basically naglalaman ng mga prinsipyo kung paano i-maintain ng isang leader ang kanyang power. In fact, ang mga famous na katagang naririnig natin like the end justifies the means, is it better to be feared than being loved, ay nagsimula sa librong ito. In short, nakapaloob sa librong ito ang pananaw ni Machiavelli based na din sa kanyang observation sa politika kung ano nga ba ang katangian ng isang magaling na leader. Ngunit sa pagdaan ng panahon, dahil hindi mo maikakaila na ang prinsipyong nakapaloob sa libro ay effective, ginagamit ito ng ibang leader, including leaders who will do bad just to obtain power. Dahil dyan, nag-evolve ang definition ng pagiging Machiavellian. Hanggang sa umabot sa punto na, kapag sinabing Machiavellian ka, ang ibig sabihin nito ay ikaw yung taong gumagawa ng masama just to have power. But that's not it. Hindi ganon yung intensyon ni Machiavelli. Nilalahad niya lamang ang realidad ng buhay. Sinasabi niya lamang na kung leader ka, dapat alam mo at meron ka ng mga katangian na to. At nasa sayo na kung gagamitin mo ito sa masama o sa mabuti. To simplify kung ano nga ba ang laman ng libro ni Machiavelli, dahil alam ko wala kayong oras para magbasa, ito yon. Number 1, naniniwala siya that a good leader should be feared rather than loved, if you cannot be both, in order to avoid revolt. Which is true, dahil kapag magpapatakbo ka ng isang bansa, at hindi ka kinakatakutan ng mga rebelde, mga NPA, paano yon? Bagsak ang Pilipinas at ang mamamahala ay mga NPAs. Number 2, a good leader should have the support of the people because it's difficult to take action without their support. There's no need to explain that. And number 3, should have good virtues. Dito ngayon nahahati ang pagiging Machiavellian leader. Kasi kung wala kang virtues, ibig sabihin, you are a bad Machiavellian leader. But if you have good virtues, then probably, ikaw yung ibig sabihin ni Professor Clarita Carlos, na Machiavellian leader. Number 4, should never turn to outside auxiliary or mercenary units, but always rely on his or her own arms. Ibig sabihin nun, huwag kang dumepende sa armed forces ng iba. Dapat magtiwala ka at palakasin mo ang sarili mong armed forces. In the context of the Philippines, ibig sabihin, huwag kang magpauto sa US. And number 5, a good leader should be intelligent. You see, ito yung mga prinsipyong nakapaloob sa libro ni Machiavelli na isinulat niya during the 15th century. And if we translate it in the modern times, we could say that a good leader is someone who is being respected by the people. Not necessarily being feared or being loved, but respected. Because the people know that this leader is intelligent enough and has good virtues to lead them. In conclusion, ang pagiging Machiavellian ay hindi talaga ibig sabihin na gumagawa ka ng masama. Ang pagiging Machiavellian na tinutukoy ni Prof. Clarita Carlos ay pagiging goal-driven. In the sense na napaka-importante sa iyo ang goal na yon, gagawin mo ang lahat para ma-achieve yon. Ngayon, bilang isang leader, nakadepende sa iyo kung paano mo ma-achieve ang isang goal na yan. Either gagawa ka ng mabuti o masama. Kaya mahalaga na ang isang leader ay mayroong good virtues. Now, this is the reason bakit ko sinabing Bongbong Marcos is so smart. balikan natin ang tanong ni Professor Clarita Carlos. Unang katanungan ni Professor Clarita Carlos, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Ang sagot ni BBM, I am essentially an optimist, and the reason why I am optimist because when you talk about the country, we are optimists. I am optimistic because the biggest asset are the Filipino people. Second question, are you a high risk taker or a low risk taker? Ang sagot ni BBM, I tend towards the conservative, only because a mistake will cause so much suffering to many people. In other words, you have to be very careful with the decisions you make, and it's not something you do offhand. You think about it very hard. And lastly, he answered the question, are you a Machiavellian? Ang unang sabi ni BBM, am I Machiavellian? Well, I've studied him quite thoroughly. Ibig sabihin, nabasa at napag-aralan niya ang libro ni Machiavelli. At dagdag pa niya, and I know very many Machiavellians in my life. That was a very safe answer. Ibig sabihin, alam din ni BBM na ang word na Machiavellian ay meron ng negative meaning and impression in the modern times. Kaya hindi siya sumagot agad if he is a Machiavellian or not. At clarify ni Professor Clarita Carlos ang ibig niyang sabihin. Sabi niya, it's a Machiavellian in terms of taking every means to produce an end, not the other Machiavellian, the bad Machiavellians. After hearing that clarification, nagdagdag ng sagot si BBM. Sabi niya, certainly we have to be aware of everything that is going to help, whatever it is that you are hoping to achieve. And on the national scale, that means you have to understand very well what the situation is on the ground. Dagdag niya, kailangan maging maingat. So I suppose, in the same sense, if these questions are related, it's a way of being careful and being very, very knowledgeable about what other things that come into play so that you will achieve success, whatever that success. However, you define that success. In that sense, I am a Machiavellian. And a clap for that. Dahil kung idudugtong mo ang tatlong sagot ni BBM, ang ibig sabihin, he is an optimist, conservative, Machiavellian. He answered the question perfectly, genuinely, intelligently. And yes, Machiavellian leadership has two sides. Either you're a bad leader or a good leader. And finally, BBM also mentioned that would satisfy the principle number 2, to have the support of the people. Sabi ni BBM, you talk to as many people as you can, and you make absolutely certain that you have done everything that you can possibly do to make whatever your plan is to make it work. Trusting the Filipino people, believing in them, being intelligent, having good virtues, that is something that a good leader should have.